Hi guys, it's Kelly Latevola here, and I am back with another video for Simon Says Stamp. And today we're going to be working with one of the new stamp sets from the most recent Simon release called New Beginnings. And the stamp set is called Funny Food. And it's just cute and punny. And then we're also going to be working with the Stitch Rectangles die, which is an older die set, but it's like a staple in my collection. I use it all the time. So I have run these through my Big Shot. I'm working on Nina 80-pound paper because I'm going to be doing some Copic coloring. And then this is just me kind of laying out how I want them to go. Some of my stamps I put above the sentiment. Sometimes I put the sentiment above the stamp. It just depended upon the size of the stamp and how much sense that made for me. And then I'm going to be stamping them in two different inks. So the image I'm going to be stamping in intense black ink from Simon Says Stamp. And this is because this is Copic safe. It's not going to smear or smudge. And it is, for me, much darker than some of the other options. So I like this one a lot. I'm going to stamp down the image, and then for the sentiment, I'm going to be using just the black Simon dye ink. This isn't Copic safe, but it is a much bolder black. It gives a really good crisp sentiment, so that's why I wanted to use the two different ones. And then I just went through and stamped down all of them. I'll be using all of the stamps in the set. We're going to start with this little, You've Got a Pizza My Heart. So it's just, they're cute and punny. I am going to be using mine for my son to pack in his little lunchbox when he has daycare to go to, which is rare, but nonetheless, I like to have little things on hand to give to him. But these would be great for your crafting friends too, if they just need like a little cute pick-me-up. There's a reason why we all laugh at those jokes on like your kids' popsicle sticks. It's because cute and punny is fun and it makes us smile. So I stamped two of the little pizzas to, I felt like that matched the sentiment better. Plus this one is a little smaller, and because my rectangle is so long, I wanted to really fill up that area. So I'm just going to go in with a bright red, this is lipstick red, and then just to add in some detail, I'm going to go in with a darker red and just do some random dots. Pepperoni is not one solid color, so I didn't want my pepperonis to be one solid color. And then to add in some of that lightness, I'm going to go back in with a 0 blender marker and then just do the same thing. Just tap it in those little dots just to give it some texture, variation in the color. And then for the crust of the pizza, I'm going to put the darkest shading at the bottom because when you look at a piece of pizza, the crust stands up. So the darker part would automatically be more toward the flat piece of pizza versus how the crust stands up. So I'm just going to blend the darkest one out with a mid-tone and just leave a very little bit at the top to fill in my lightest color. Through all of the coloring here, I did use a lot of the same colors. I used the same browns throughout. That just made it easier for me as I was going through. I didn't have to pull out like 100 markers. So for this, I just wanted them to have a little bit of ground to stand on. I feel like it makes such a big difference. So I'm using a C3 and a C1, not anything super dark, just enough that they have something and they don't look like they're just floating in midair. So from here to the watermelon, and that sentiment is You're One in a Melon, which is super adorable. And then I just picked some more like peachy reds. Because when you look at a slice of watermelon, the top is almost like transparent, depending upon how thin you slice them. So I covered the whole thing in my lightest color, and then I'm adding darker. I'm only using 3 color blends. These images aren't huge, but they're enough to carry 3 colors. Most of the time I didn't have to go 4. And then I'm just going to go over kind of like the center section with the lightest color. And then we're going to move on to the greens. Typically with watermelon, that little band in between is like a whitish neon green where you would cut the rind off. So I'm just shading that a very, very little bit because it would have some shading because it's a round object. So where the it would be 3D on the edges, that would be darker. I filled in the second band that would be the actual rind with the whole YG03, and then I'm going to go back in with some G markers and add some shading to that. I felt like it looked weird with a huge green area, so I went back in and just added a line at the bottom to kind of fill that in with some of the darker color. I just felt like that large portion of the YG03 looked weird with the lighter color rind, so I didn't leave very much of that in the center, just enough to kind of blend everything together. And then I almost, oh, I colored in his feet green, but I almost forgot his little seeds. I was like, okay, I'm all done. And then I was like, wait a minute, that's something missing. So I just took a darker gray marker. It's almost black and colored right over top of that. I did do the little gray area for all of them. I just didn't show it every time. For this donut, I thought it would be super fun to just add some sprinkles to it, so I'm just going in with a EK Success journaling pen and drawing some hearts and squares and circles. I was not particular about it. I was not trying very hard. I just thought that it would be something to just give a little bit more character to him. I am going to be coloring this as if the glaze was shiny. So you'll see on the back part there, I'm leaving a white area. And then in the front on the frosting, I'm also going to leave another white area. This white area will diminish as we color, but for me, because I know that I'm heavy-handed, it helps to leave a larger area in the beginning and then fill it in when I color over it the second time, than to try to get it exactly how I want it the first time, because if I get really heavy-handed with my Copics and it starts to bleed, I'll lose my white entirely. So the darker, because it's further away, the back would be darker, and then also where the hole of the donut is, there's like two little notches that are kind of drawn into the back there. That area would be darker at the base, where not as much light is getting in. And then with my darkest color, I'm really only going to add just kind of like two little stripes. One's going to be in the back center. And, oh, and I did do the little hole too. But I'm going to add one stripe in the back center and then one in the front right against where like you would be looking down into the hole. I did add just a teeny tiny bit to the edges of the highlighted areas there. And then I'm going to go back through and just work from my darkest back out to my lightest color, making sure everything is getting nice and blended and it's working together. This particular color combination is a little bit dark, but I was okay with it. I felt like it made it look shiny. I knew it was going to match the paper that I wanted to use later on. And then you can see that that white area is getting smaller and smaller. I did leave some plain white, and that's going to help make it look shiny, leaving those little white areas. I wanted the hearts to kind of stand out in red. I'm not sure if they necessarily look red, but using the R59 did make them stand out from the pink frosting, so I was okay with it. And then back to those same browns to do the bottom of it. I have a tendency to color everything as if my light source is in the top right hand corner, so that's why my highlight is more to the right than it is to the left. And then I'll color the frosting the same way, as if it was casting a shadow. If the light was in the right, the shadows would be to the left. So that's just my own personal carryover from high school. There isn't a right or wrong way to do that. If you would rather have your shadows be to the bottom right, as if your light source was in the top left, that's totally fine. Even a center highlight, which is typically what a lot of crafters do, is fine. So for the rest of the sprinkles, I'm using a pink souffle pen. And if you've never been introduced to these before, they call them embossing pens. When they go down, they're clear. When they dry, they're opaque, and they're kind of raised like embossing. But the opaqueness is what I wanted, because it was going to fill in those sprinkles. And then I also used a white gel pen. For my You're the Best Thing Since Sliced Bread, I didn't want it to just be brown. So I decided I was going to make him or her have a little bit of jelly on her. So that's why I used the dark purple to just kind of break that up a little bit, because Copics are transparent and a lighter color will remove some darker color. I'm going back in first with a VO4. I'm not going over the whole thing. I'm leaving the edges dark, but the inside I'm trying to lighten up a little bit, and I'm doing the same thing with the VO1. And you can see it does get lighter. It doesn't get super light. It's still hard to see that face, but I got a game plan for that later too, so just hang tight with me, folks. For the bread, I'm using the same browns we have been, coloring in the whole thing with that E53, and then I will shade the crusts with the other two browns, which is a 55 and a 57. The whole thing will be covered with the 55, and then the 57 will just be adding in kind of like a little bit of shadow where the bread indents on the top. There would be shadows, and then also kind of on the corners, there would be some shadows. For most of their feet, I did the whatever the darkest color was that matched. So for that one I did the brown, for the watermelon I did the dark green. That's what I'm talking about. So here we're going to be doing some fries, some French fries. Isn't that sentiment just so cute? Ooh la la. It's super, super cute. But so for the fries, I picked, I didn't go with like bright yellows, though you could, that would be fine. I went with something that was just a little bit more subdued. I felt like was more French fry colored. You've heard me say this before, anything that's darker falls into the background. So some of these French fries I'm going to color completely with this dark, it's more like it's a gold color. It's like YR24. But some of them I'm going to color completely, and that will automatically make them look as if they are behind the other French fries, so that there's good layering and dimension. And then I'm just going to blend out those colors with my lightest one. I decided I was going to color this French fry container red. I think most people, when we think French fries, at least if you're, from the US, you traditionally think the McDonald's red carton, yellow French fries. That's what I do anyway. Maybe it's because I worked there when I was 15. I don't know. But anyway, so that was my original game plan, was to do these red. I ended up changing it at the end, and we'll talk about why those, that transparency of Copics is so important and why it allows it to do that. So here I'm just adding a little bit of shading around the edges. I was going to try to leave the edges white, but reds are really hard to remove, and I did get a little bit of red into that border, and to me it just was not worth it to try to clean it up. So I just decided, well, I'll just make it darker. It'll be a darker border. So the two sides I went in with the R59 and made it super dark. And then for the center highlighted areas, I just used the same thing, the R29, which is the darkest color on the inside of the carton, to kind of blend those out. So here's all of the little guys all together. Just, something, it's cute and fun and different and allows you to practice your Copics, and I love that. Any practice I can get, I'm down for. I always outline all of my images. I'm bringing in that same writing pen and just outlining everything that there is. Here I really wanted to use a different color of cardstock for each card, and I had two reds. So I'm just going to go in with a YR04 and cover that entire red piece for the French fry, and it totally turned everything orange because they are transparent and they lay on top of each other. I didn't have to do any other shading, and it matched the orange peel cardstock from Simon Says Stamp perfectly, and then I just moved on. So when I'm making multiples of cards, the same layout, I like to just kind of get all of my piles together. So I have my colored pieces, I have my colored cardstock, I have my white card bases, and then I have pieces of white fun foam. Everything's already cut, so I'm just basically kind of doing like just like the just a line. I'm just whatever it is, I'm doing all of it. So I put all of the card bases down, and then I'm going to put all of the I'm put the fun foam on the back. I had a really hard time with my particular tape dispenser, so it didn't really want to stick to the fun foam. I don't know what was up with that, but I ended up switching over to Tombow Mono multi-glue to glue them down to that card. And this is a super simple card. It's just the layout isn't very busy, but I don't particularly, that's just not usually my bag. So you could make these, you could do tone-on-tone stenciling in the back, you could do stamping on your cardstock, you could make these whatever you wanted. I just really liked having a bright colored background and letting the coloring be the star. But there's so many different options for this. So you can see the last thing that I did here was the clear Wink of Stella, and I put that on something for every single one of the cards. Oh, that purple. I used the white gel pen to add that face back in, so he still had his cute little smiley face and blushy cheeks. And then these are all the cards. So I think that they came out adorable. They're very simple, but that plays to my taste, and it got me a lot of practice for my Copics, and that was fun. So I hope you guys learned something, and I will catch you on the next video. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye.